Then came the murals. Now this is still at UCLA. There was this quite fabulous mural that he did.
Ramses Noriega, who was a painter and a leader of Chicano students' activities at UCLA, asked me to participate with him in a mural project along with two other artists. We did work on the mural, Chicano history.
Well, the late 1960s was a time of anti-war awareness and organization across the United States, including in the Mexican-American community, where so many of our young people were being drafted and killed in a higher proportion to our representation in the population.
But in that didactic, historic period of the late 60s, early 70s, when so much of what was important about muralism was the messaging, they were much more than just big portraits. They were pictures that were hearkening to a narrative, and the messaging was, pride and culture and identity.
Where did the concept of mural come? Of course, by natural heritage, the Latin heritage to surround the church or surround the plaza with purposefulness.
And that was exactly what the Los Tres had been doing in Mexico when they went and they painted all those murals. They were painting for a fundamentally illiterate populace, people who did not read and write, who did not know their history. And so they painted it for them.
Since there were four artists, there were four separate aspects to the painting. Since I had just come back from Mexico and been living in the desert, a lot of what I wanted to express was the spiritual aspect that I had uncovered in Mexico, the Indian heritage, the union of the Indio with the spirit of nature.
The Mecha mural that he and Ramses Noriega and Salsalache and Sergio Hernandez do is really sort of a precursor, a prophecy for what will happen at the moratorium. Unlike many other murals that were painted in that era, really were about a moment of resistance.
About a month after, or actually 2 weeks, I believe it was, after the painting was finished, there was an event called the Chicano Moratorium. And it seems like a lot of what went on at the moratorium was actually mirrored in this imagery of the painting we had just finished.
This, in a sense, kind of changed my ideas as to what I was and what was happening in the whole social movement, or the civil rights movement, which I think this Chicano movement really has grown out of.
When he was there in Santa Cruz, he did one of the most wonderful murals.
We could sense it, I think, in the way he painted, that he would undertake these huge project paintings that were extremely difficult.
One of the first malls ever, and all these little shops inside and so forth. The mall had this entryway where nothing happened, sort of like just this box-like hall that you kind of come in, entering one part of this mall. And so the people who ran the shops employed Ed. Basically, they just provided the materials. If he would take this entry and do a mural.
It was like 44 feet long, 18 feet high, and 8 feet wide.
The theme of the mural then deals with the birth of the corn god, who is represented on the ceiling of the painting. And then you see the image coming out of the clouds. On the back wall is an image of the crucifixion, where you see the corn god crucified.
So there was a lot of attraction to the mural. There were a lot of people drawn to it. Oftentimes there would be a musician in there playing their music. There would be their horns, flutes. I remember people playing flute, but beautiful music in there. And so in the evenings, vagrants, sometimes people who had been drinking, maybe homeless people would wind up in that space.
I was discussing in my class of painting how you should work with materials that are going to last. A student raised his hand and said, "Do you know that they painted out your mural downtown?" I didn't know, so I had to go down and see it, which was a big shock for me. And
in fact, maybe that was one of the problems with the mural that got washed in UC Santa Cruz, is that it was ahead of its time. You could probably put that mural up now and it would be fine. Images of the calaveras and that would be okay. It wasn't then.
When I was getting to know Ed, he took me down to the Palomar Arcade and showed me where the mural had been. We were able to peek through the crack in the door. He didn't say it broke his heart, but I think it broke his heart.
Eduardo understood the meaning of scale for muralists, which is the relationship of the size of the figures painted on the wall to their audience. Not only do the arms come out and embrace you, they're also kind of welcoming you to the whole space. And so one wall speaks to the other wall. The ceiling paintings speak to the two walls. It's a whole womb-like environment that envelops you when you're in the space. And I must say that being in the space when it was painted was a bit of a spiritual experience all by itself.